The night my family left me didn't start with yelling or anger. It started with silence, the kind of silence that feels heavier than any argument. We were driving through the city, Christmas lights glowing on every street, families were laughing in restaurants, kids were running with candy canes. Everything looked warm and beautiful, except inside our car. No one was speaking. My mother sat stiff in the passenger seat. My father kept both hands tight on the steering wheel. My older brother stared out the window, and I sat in the back, wondering why my heart felt uneasy, like something bad was about to happen. We stopped in front of a building I had never seen before. It wasn't decorated, no Christmas lights, no wreaths, just a plain sign that read, "Emergency Shelter." My mom turned around and said quietly, "You'll be safe here." I laughed at first because I thought she was joking, but no one else laughed. "Wait, what do you mean?" I asked. My father didn't look at me. My brother opened the door and took my small suitcase from the trunk. That was when I realized they weren't joking. They were leaving me. I stepped out of the car, confused, shaking. "Why? What did I do?" No one answered. My mom hugged me quickly, but it felt rushed, like she was afraid of staying too long. Then she whispered, "We can't do this anymore." And before I could ask what that meant, they were back in the car. The engine started, the red brake lights glowed, and they drove away. I stood there in the freezing air, watching the only family I had disappear into the night. I didn't cry right away. I couldn't. I felt empty, like someone had ripped something out of my chest and left nothing behind. The shelter doors opened behind me. A warm light spilled out. A woman at the front desk asked softly, "Are you here for a bed tonight?" I nodded. That was the first night of my new life. Inside, the shelter smelled like soup and clean blankets. People sat quietly, some staring at the floor, some whispering. Everyone there had a story, but none of them had expected to be there on Christmas Eve. They gave me a thin mattress and a pillow. As I lay there, I stared at the ceiling, replaying everything. Every birthday, every family dinner, every time my parents said they loved me. And I wondered, did they ever really mean it? The next morning, sunlight streamed through a small window. It was Christmas Day. Instead of waking up to presents and laughter, I woke up surrounded by strangers. But something unexpected happened. A volunteer brought me hot chocolate. Another one handed me a small wrapped gift. Inside was a scarf. "I thought you might need this," she said with a gentle smile. I almost cried right there. That small kindness felt bigger than anything my family had ever given me. Days passed, then weeks. I started helping around the shelter, cleaning, serving food, talking to people who were just as lost as I was. And slowly, I began to feel something I hadn't felt in a long time. I felt useful. I felt seen. One day, a man who volunteered there asked me about my life. I told him everything. He listened without interrupting. At the end, he said, "Sometimes the people who leave you make room for the people who will love you better." Those words stayed with me. A few months later, he helped me get a job. It wasn't fancy. I cleaned offices at night. But it was honest work. My own money, my own independence. I saved every dollar. Eventually, I moved into a tiny apartment. Just one room, one bed, one small kitchen. But it was mine. I decorated it with things I found at thrift stores, a lamp, a plant, a picture frame. For the first time in my life, I had a place that belonged to me. One evening, I came home from work and found a letter in my mailbox. It was from my mother. She wrote that they missed me, that things were hard, that they hoped I was okay. I stared at that letter for a long time. Then I realized something powerful. They had left me when I had nothing, but I had survived without them, and I was stronger because of it. I never sent a reply. Not because I hated them, but because I learned that I didn't need their approval to exist. Years passed. I got a better job. I made friends, real friends, people who celebrated my birthday, people who showed up when I was sick, people who stayed. One Christmas, I invited everyone over. We ate, we laughed, we shared stories. And as I looked around that room, I realized something incredible. I had built my own family, not from blood, but from love. So if you're watching this and you feel alone, unwanted, or abandoned, remember this. The people who walk away from you do not define your future. Sometimes being left behind is the first step towards becoming who you are meant to be. And even when you lose everything, you can still build something beautiful.
You know, they say family is forever, that they'll be there through every high and every low, every triumph and every failure. But what if one Christmas Eve, the people you trusted the most looked you square in the eye and then walked away like you never mattered at all? That's exactly what happened to me. Cut to a shaky shot of a dark road, headlights cutting through rain. It began on a cold December night. The wind was biting and the streets were empty except for the occasional car passing by. I had just finished dinner with my family. At least I thought it was dinner. Looking back now, it was the calm before storm I never saw coming. We talked, we laughed at first, but as the night went on, the smiles faded. Something in the air changed. I could feel it, but I didn't know how to put words to it yet. Change scene. Outside of a shelter, neon lights blinking. Suddenly, we were outside, in front of a shelter I'd never stepped foot in before. My mom said, "This is where you'll be safe tonight," but the look in her eyes didn't match her words. My dad didn't say a word. My siblings just stared at the ground. Then they turned and walked back towards the car. I stood there stunned. Christmas decorations glowed behind them, but it felt like the world had gone completely dark. Music drops into a low, emotional note. I tried to call after them, "Wait!" But no one looked back. No one came back. And in that moment, I felt something break inside my chest. Cut to interior of the shelter, people milling around, blankets being handed out. I tried to hold it together as I walked inside. I was confused, hurt, and scared, all at the same time. The faces around me were kind, but I felt invisible, lost. As I waited in the line for a blanket, my thoughts kept racing. Why did this happen? What did I do wrong? Was I not enough? Soft flashback montage of childhood photos, birthdays, Christmas mornings. All those memories, the laughter, the hugs, the promises, they flashed through my mind like a slideshow. I thought family was unbreakable. I thought love was forever. But that Christmas Eve, I learned that sometimes the people you call family are human too, and humans can hurt you in ways you never expect. Back to shelter floor, people hugging, volunteers helping. But then something shifted. A volunteer came up to me and knelt down. She asked my name. She offered a warm drink. No judgment, no pity, just presence. That moment, it was unexpected, and for the first time in hours, I felt something slowly start to heal. The night was long, and the bed I got in the shelter wasn't comfortable. It wasn't a home, but it was warm, and it was safe. Soft smile through a tear. And you know what happened next? The next day, just hours after my family left me, something amazing began to change my life. I met strangers who chose to stay, who didn't walk away when things got hard. I met people who didn't have to give me a blanket, a meal, or a bed, but gave me kindness anyway. People who didn't know me, but chose to care. By the next morning, Christmas morning, those strangers had become something like family. And that's when I realized something important. Family isn't always the people who share your last name. Family is the people who stand with you when you're standing on nothing. Scene. Sunlight peeks through a window in the shelter. people smiling. So if you're watching this today feeling alone or abandoned, please hear this. You are not alone. Your worth isn't determined by who stays or who walks away. And sometimes the heartbreak you feel is just the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with people who truly see you and value you. Because love isn't about who stays when everything is perfect. Love is who shows up when everything falls apart. Music rises to hopeful crescendo, and though my family left me on that Christmas Eve, what I found afterward, the strength, the compassion, the courage to keep going, that's the real gift. Not from them, but from life itself. Fade out with the sound of church bells and gentle wind. Thank you for watching. If you've ever felt abandoned or had to rebuild your world, share your story below. You never know who might be inspired to stay just by reading your words. The screen fades to black with text, "You are worthy. You belong."